The National Broadcasting Company presents, transcribes Sir Laurence Olivier in Theatre Royal.
This is Laurence Olivier. Today's play is adapted from a story by Bret Harte. Many of you will already be familiar with his Tales of the West. His knowledge of those spacious days was gained from personal experience, for Bret Harte himself was one of the famous 49ers. He drew upon his own rich experiences for tales such as the one we'll tell today. I myself shall relate the story and play the part of Mr. John Oakhurst. Here, then, is The Outcasts of Poker Flat by Bret Harte. As Mr. John Oakhurst, gambler, stepped into the main streets of Poker Flat on the morning of the 23rd of November, 1850, he was conscious of a change in its moral atmosphere since the preceding night. 2 or 3 men, conversing earnestly together, ceased as he approached and exchanged significant glances. There was a Sabbath lull in the air, which, in a settlement unused to Sabbath influences, looked ominous. Mr. Oakhurst's calm, handsome face betrayed small concern in these indications. Whether he was conscious of any predisposing cause was another question.
Fine day, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Mild weather for the time of the year. Mark you? I can detect a touch of frost in the air. Or is that merely my imagination?
Maybe.
My first winter in Poker Flat, of course. So I don't hardly know when we'll be having the first fall of snow. Guess we won't have to wait long, though. There's plenty back there in the Sierras, and the nights are kind of cold.
Yeah.
Heard any more about that holdup down in the gulch?
Yeah, we heard.
Yeah. You reckon you know who did it?
We know plenty, Oakhurst. You'll be knowing plenty yourself before much longer.
Well, at least you can't pin that one on me.
Maybe not. But there's going to be some changes in Poker Flat before much longer.
Yeah? Well, good day, gentlemen. Reckon they're after somebody. Likely it's me.
In point of fact, Poker Flat was after somebody. It had lately suffered the loss of several $1,000s, 2 valuable horses, and a prominent citizen. It was experiencing a spasm of virtuous reaction, quite as lawless and ungovernable as any of the acts that had provoked it. The secret committee had determined to rid the town of all improper persons. This was done permanently next day in regard to 2 men who were hanged from the boughs of a sycamore in the gulch. Measures of a more temporary nature were then taken against Mr. Oakhurst.
Oakhurst, we're running you out of town.
May I ask why, gentlemen?
You're a no-good gambler, and this town's got no use for you or the likes of you.
You mean you aim to put a stop to card playing in Poker Flat?
That's right.
Well, as I've had the honor of playing with every one of you these last few months...
There was no card playing here till you came, Oakhurst.
You mean there wasn't a deck of cards here before I came? Now, wait a minute.
We mean we ain't gonna let no more strangers from Roaring Camp come here and clean us out.
I thought you were better losers, gentlemen. I apologize.
We ain't aiming to start no arguments, Oakhurst. We're running you out of town tomorrow. You and all your sort.
Without a trial? I see gentlemen in this room that I've lost to more than once. Are they coming with me?
If it hadn't been for some of us, you wouldn't have been going, Oakhurst. You'd have been swinging back there in the gulch with Red and Cherokee.
Well, gentlemen, perhaps you're better losers than I thought. Some of you. Tomorrow 'tis, then. May I ask who'll be coming with me? I think you said some others.
Uncle Billy, the Duchess, and Mother Shipton. Starting out under escort at dawn.
Mr. Oakhurst received his sentence with philosophic calmness. He was too much of a gambler not to accept his fate. With him, life was at best an uncertain game, and he recognized the usual percentage in favor of the dealer. Next morning, a body of armed men accompanied him and the rest of the deported wickedness of Poker Flat to the outskirts of the settlement. The cavalcade provoked no comments from the spectators, nor was any word uttered by the escort until they reached the gulch which marked the outermost limit of Poker Flat.
Well, Oakhurst, that's your way, and I guess you don't need anyone to show you. If you ride hard, you'll be in Sandy Bar before dark. The rest's up to you.
Very hard ride for ladies.
Ain't no ladies making the trip that I know.
Why, you...
If you know what's good for you, don't ever show up in Poker Flat again.
Speaking for myself, I ain't aiming to do that.
All right, then, don't. There's plenty more boughs on that old sycamore for any of you that we set eyes on. Now get moving. The lot of you.
The road to Sandy Bar lay over a steep mountain range. In that advanced season, the party soon passed out of the moist, temperate regions of the foothills into the dry, bracing air of the Sierras. The trail was narrow and difficult. At noon, the Duchess, rolling out of her saddle upon the ground, declared her intention of going no further, and the party halted.
I ain't a-going another yard. It's plain murder, and I ain't going to stand for it.
Okay, ma'am, we'll take a little rest. But we're hardly halfway through the mountains yet.
I don't care where we are. I ain't going no further.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but we'd be crazy to stop here for more than a half hour.
Well, we can camp out here, young fella. We're out of the wind here.
And we're not equipped for camping. We're short on provisions.
I don't care. I'm
If
through.
you'll pardon me, ma'am, there's no sense in throwing up your hand before the game's played out.
We got liquor, ain't we? What more provision do you need than a bottle of rye?
Thank you. I never touch it.
Hey, well, I do. And this is one time, yes, sir.
Me too. Here, Mr. Oakhurst, drink this for the loan of your horse.
Thank you, ma'am. I never drink. I find it interferes with my profession.
The spot where they had halted was singularly wild and impressive. A wooded amphitheater, surrounded on three sides by precipitous cliffs of naked granite, sloped gently toward the crest of another precipice that overlooked the valley. Above them, the towering peaks of the Sierras were glittering white with snow. Before very long, the liquor had begun to make itself felt. Uncle Billy was in a state of stupor, the Duchess had begun maudlin, and Mother Shipton had begun to snore. Mr. Oakhurst alone remained erect, leaning against a rock, surveying them. Last, he dusted his black clothes, washed his hands and face in a stream, and tried to forget his annoyance. The thought of deserting his companions never seemed to occur to him.
Why, hello there, Mr. Oakhurst.
Hello, Tom. Well met. What are you doing out here?
On my way over to Poker Flat. Things a bit quiet back in Sandy Bar. I thought I'd try my luck someplace else.
And the young lady?
Oh, Miss Piney Woods. You remember Piney, Mr. Oakhurst? She used to wait on table at the Temperance House in Sandy Bar.
Why, yes, of course.
As a matter of fact, we're riding over to Poker Flat to be married. We've been engaged a long time, but old Jake Woods objected, so we're running away together.
Oh.
We aim to be married as soon as we get in.
Well, congratulations, Tom. I wish you every happiness, Piney.
Thank you, Mr. Oakhurst. Oh, gosh, am I tired?
Well, come on and meet the others here. Duchess, Mother Shipton, Uncle Billy.
Hiya.
Meet Tom Simpson, otherwise known as the Innocent from Sandy Bar, and Miss Piney Woods. They're going to Poker Flat to be married.
Well,
Glad
nice,
to meet you.
nice place you picked here. You aiming to make a camp?
That's right. That's what I told him.
I reckon we ought to be pushing on, Tom. We've got no provisions with us, and we ought to be in Sandy Bar before nightfall.
No, we
We're
ain't
not
going
leaving
no
here
further.
at
Oh, that's all
We're
right.
staying right here.
We've an extra mule loaded up with provisions. Reckon we might have to make camp ourselves. We'll go shares with you.
Well, that's mighty neighborly of you, Mr. Simpson.
And there's a ruined log house just behind the trail about a half a mile back. Piney here can stay with Mrs. Oakhurst.
Mrs. Oakhurst. Oh, okay, Tom. The ladies can have the log house. Uncle Billy here. You and I can shift for ourselves.
Well, that's just fine. Piney here's ready to drop. It's a hard ride into town either way. Rest up for the night and start good and early. We'll be in by noon tomorrow.
That's just what I was telling him. We'd be crazy to go any further today.
Well, I guess if Tom here is willing to take us to a meal, we can afford the delay.
Well, I'll be glad to. After those $40 you gave me back that time, do you know what? He won $40 off me at poker, all the money I had. Then he takes me aside and gives them back to me. just so long as I never played poker again.
Can you imagine?
You're a good boy, Tommy, but you can't gamble worth a cent.
Mr. Oakhurst seldom troubled himself with sentiment, still less with propriety. But he had a vague idea that the situation was not fortunate. He would have been far happier if Tom Simpson had ridden off to his wedding, and the outcasts had pushed on through the mountains while the daylight lasted. As it was, the scene very soon became animated. A fire was lit, for the evening turned cold and overcast, and the little party ate their meal and laughed and talked in the firelight. It was good to forget the darkness and the wind that rocked the tops of the pine trees, moaning through their long and gloomy aisles.
It sure would have been cold without a fire.
Well, the wind seems to be getting up back there. Well, I guess you ladies will be warm enough in the log house.
Won't be sorry to break camp in the morning and get on through the mountains.
Well, guess I'll be turning in. The heat of the fires made me go all sleepy. You coming, Piney?
Oh, I surely am. I can hardly keep awake.
Well, young man, we thank you for the grub. It was mighty lucky meeting you.
Oh, you're welcome, ma'am. Well, good night, honey.
Night, Tom.
Good night, Mr. Simpson.
Well, so long, Mr. Simpson. Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
The broken-down door of the old log house closed behind the ladies. The fire was replenished, and after a last look at the mules and horses, the men lay down before the crackling logs, and in a few minutes all were asleep. The wind moved restlessly through the pines, and the clouds drifted sullenly through the dark of the sky. The fire at last burnt low, and the warm ashes paled beside the dying embers. Mr. Oakhurst was a light sleeper. Toward morning, he awoke, benumbed and cold. As he stirred the dying fire, the wind, which was now blowing strongly, brought to his cheek that which caused the blood to leave it.
Snow. Hey, wake up, both of you. Tom, Uncle Billy. What the devil?
What is it? Is it morning?
Nearly. Where's Uncle Billy?
Where? Why, he's gone.
He's gone, and so are the mules. It's snowing, man. Don't you realize? We'll be snowed in.
In a moment, we continue Theatre Royal with Sir Lawrence Olivier.
There's listening fare for all the family tomorrow on NBC. Your Sunday concert from Carnegie Hall brings you Maestro Arturo Toscanini conducting the NBC Symphony in an all-Beethoven program. With income tax returns very much on everyone's mind, Alan Melville, noted British humorist and commentator, offers to export Great Britain's income tax system over here, while Roland Mitchell, Yale professor of history, takes a more serious note and recounts the historical background of the March 15th ritual in this country. All this on the comprehensive cultural collector's item show. Then, for the week's news events, all the family will enjoy their Sunday newspaper of the air weekend from cover to cover. Hear the European reaction to the McCarthy-Stevens controversy, the NBC coverage of the Inter-American Conference in Caracas, Venezuela, as well as a feature story on the psychology of the juvenile delinquent. All tomorrow on your listening newspaper, Weekend. Later, everybody's favorite comedienne Judy Holliday portrays the daydreaming damsel in Elmer Rice's delightful comedy, Dream Girl, on the NBC Star Playhouse. And don't miss the ever-loving but always involved Marriott as they argue an ethical point on the marriage. Make your date every Sunday with NBC.
And now we continue Theatre Royal with Sir Lawrence Olivier.
Uncle Billy and the mules had gone. So had the horses. All had vanished into the silence of the night. Snow came whirling down, burying any tracks that might have been there to follow. By the time it was light, the snow was a foot deep, soft and blown into treacherous drifts. There was no help for it. They were cut off completely from the rest of the world, imprisoned in the very heart of the mountains. And still the snow came down.
Why,
that drunken murderess...
Tossing will get us nowhere, Mother Shipton. Besides which, remember the company.
What are we going to do? We'll starve to death up here. That snow won't be gone for days
Oh,
yet.
don't you worry, ma'am.